Are we filming? Yes, we are. So welcome to another podcast. Haven't done one of these for about a month. Forgive me, I'm struggling a bit because I've broken a tooth. It's making my speech a little bit funny, but we're still hanging there. Thank you for your best wishes also, by the way, health-wise. Feeling pretty good. Lots of hospital visits, some of which have been cancelled. I've had 3 cancellations in the last fortnight, possibly because here in the UK we've got a junior doctor strike or a resident doctor strike or an absent doctor strike. I don't know what they call themselves at the moment, but people are being pushed back. So I hope that things will be back to normal soon, but the junior doctors or the resident with even more money than they've had after their large bumper pay rise. So we'll live in hope that everybody will be saved. No one will suffer their demise, and we'll crack on. That's a bit of a political thing, but anyway, let's crack on. Okay, so you'll notice that things have been rescheduled. Now, I was experimenting, and it's a dangerous thing. Stating your intention to publish every Saturday evening, every Sunday evening. That's a dangerous thing if you may, through various for reasons, not be able to keep up that schedule. And I've changed things around yet again, which is something that I'm inclined to do. But essentially, what's happening is that I'm making more videos, but half of them are for the wider viewing public, and half of them are for channel members. So I'm building up a library of exclusive material for channel members. And essentially, they are now taking the form of red light. You'll see a red dot and a green dot against my videos now. And the green dot is for the wider viewing public, and the red dot is for channel members only. But essentially, no one's missing out because the videos for channel members are essentially an extended version, more detail, an extended version of the videos I make for the wider viewing public. But if you're interested in this, a little bit of plug, it costs you £1 a month to see these. And there's a growing collection. And it'll cost you £1 a month or the equivalent in your currency around the world. Have a look, let me know, leave your comments, and then I'll be much appreciated. So, the timetable of videos. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm making the 2 videos, one for channel members and one for the wider viewing public, on the same day, and then the channel members get to see it straight away, their version, and then the wider viewing public see it a few days later. So that's how it's been working the last couple of weeks. I've had a look to see whether this, from a statistical point of view, whether this has made any difference to viewing figures. And what's happened is the viewing figures have increased. So that's very interesting and quite gratifying. So I'm just going to carry on with that for the foreseeable. What I am doing, as you may have noticed, is because I want to let people know what's coming up, or not necessarily what's coming up, but when things are coming up. So I will leave a post on the community page saying, hey, I've got a video coming up this Saturday at 7 p.m. UK time. I try and make sure they're 7 p.m. UK time, so that at least that time slot is arguably the best time slot for the widest viewing public around the world, but it's open to debate, of course. But that carries on, but it will be different days. I am trying as best I can, although I haven't made a video for over a week. I am trying to make at least one video a week, sometimes two, maybe more than that, you never know. I think the most I've made in 1 week was 7 videos or 8 videos, which is just crazy, I know, but you know, my enthusiasm knows no bounds when it comes to paper-based productivity and filofaxes and notebooks and pens and ink, and you know, goodness gracious, the more I think about this, the more I get excited. So anyway, so let's crack on. Okay, so some time ago I made a video entitled Filofax or Notebook, which should I choose for journaling? And Paul commented recently saying, Neil, I've debated this myself and come to the practical conclusion that I won't keep a journal if I have to carry an extra notebook around. I journal in and around other things, so keeping single journal inserts at a time in my Filofax EDC makes it easy to keep the practice going. Plus, I love how the Filofax holds all the completed pages. I have had the thought that in much later life, I may solder the rings shut. We'll see. Now, holy moly, that is a real powerful comment, Paul, to start things off. I never thought about that. Soldering the rings shut. It's like almost like a permanent closure to that completed Filofax. Other binders available. But I know Paul likes his vintage Filofaxes, as do I. Journaling. I have in my life, I mean, I started a journal back in 1972, Christmas 72. So I've done a lot of journaling on and off, and some of those binders have been lost over time. I mean, how does that happen? But, you know, it does. And way back in 1972, I wasn't using a Filofax. I'd never even heard of Filofaxes. I only came across Filofaxes. They only appeared on my radar in 1993 because Christmas 92, a relative gave me a cheap W. H. Smith's binder, which. And this is interesting because why did I not use it? I didn't really use it because it had no flatability. I didn't even know what flatability was, but the fact that it snapped shut like a clamshell because it was a very, very cheap and nasty binder. You don't want to sound ungrateful, but it was what it was. I think it probably cost £10, something like that. But I was in W. H. Smith's, and I digress here, but give me some rope here. I was in W. H. Smith's, which is a newsagent's, stationery suppliers that has been going over 200 years here in the UK. Recently, they sold, after over 200 years, they sold all their high street stores to a company, another company. And there's presumably a lot of goodwill there involved. But basically, W. H. Smith's as an organisation still exists, but they're going to just focus on their traditional forte, which is small convenience stores at largely railway stations and airports, where they have a captive audience who somewhat reluctantly perhaps, but inevitably will fork out a huge amount of money for an item that could on elsewhere cost much less, but because they're in the airport or because they're constrained by circumstances waiting for a train or something time wise, they can charge monster profits. And that's what they're going to do. And they've done that. They have done that since the birth of the railways, here in the UK. So they are an established feature of railways here in the UK. And then once airplane travel started, they were in airports, I guess. I don't know that for sure with airports, but certainly with railway stations, that is the case. Whenever you see pictures of railway stations in the Victorian age here in the UK, you will see a W.H. Smith and Sons store in the photograph quite often. Anyway, but what happened was I was in W.H. Smith's September 1993, a prominent date in my career and life, and I bought. I was looking at these binders. I thought, oh, that looks similar to mine, and it happened to be a Filofax, and I opened it because back in the day they were on display. And they weren't boxed, so you could just open it and have a look at it, which I'm very grateful for, because otherwise I would have passed it by. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I didn't know it was called Flatability, which is something I coined, perhaps. Some people say I coined it, but I don't know. But essentially, the Flatability completely transformed my interest in Filofaxes to the point where I thought this could be a very usable tool. It opens and stays open, and so I made my decision and paid $49.99 for a Filofax Sherwood, which I still have. It's in the kitchen at the moment being used, so I use it virtually every day. And I did not know at the time that it was at the peak. This was peak Filofax quality. I should trademark that name, peak Filofax quality, where up until that point, Filofaxes were very much rudimentary and good quality, but not all of them had good flatability. And then suddenly there was a boom, wasn't there? There was a boom in the 80s, and then softer materials came out, and the construction method was such that flatability was a thing. And sadly, probably because it's slightly cheaper to make them in one piece rather than three pieces, they now make them largely in one piece, and so you get not all of them, but typically Filofax, especially sizes smaller than A5, the flatability is non-existent, which makes, in my humble opinion, a Filofax next to useless, unless you're using it as an occasional thing. But this is what I get. This is why I'm moving on to Paul's point, and that is this: there are advantages with, as I mentioned in this video, there are advantages with using a notebook, because there is no intrinsic value to the cover of the notebook, and you're more likely for your notes, your journal, to survive subsequent generations long into the future. It's more likely to survive intact. Whereas, and I make this point, and it could be a factor. It could be a factor. With a Filofax, there's going to be a trade, a healthy trade in vintage Filofaxes in the future. Perhaps even more so as people appreciate vintage Filofaxes more. So if people are clearing out all your stuff after you've passed away, they will have their smartphone. I mean, we're going to have smartphones forever now, aren't we? In 1,000 years' time, we'll have smartphones. I suspect they will have a quick look on eBay or whatever platform is available at that time, 100, 200, 300 years' time, and think, oh, these are worth money. Let's just sell it, and then bin these notes that our ancestor, our grandfather or great grandfather have written, because we can make some money out of this Filofax thing. It's apparently quite a valuable thing. Now, that's not going to happen with a notebook, so it makes it more likely that your notes will survive. However, on the flip side, and this is where I agree with Paul, I have experimented with journal entries on Filofax paper. Not necessarily Filofax branded paper, but Filofax paper that you can punch and use in a Filofax. So here I have, so this is my, I'm using today my, not a Filofax, but this is a plotter made in Japan. And you can see that my paper in here is slightly bigger. Have I got a standard Filofax page? Not right now. Slightly bigger than personal Filofax size. Because, why is it bigger? Because I can. There's no law to say I can't. And it closes very nicely. I don't generally use tabs, so I don't need to allow for the tab indentation space. I can go big, and I have gone big. So, so this is the sort of paper I would use for my journal. 50 GSM Clairefontaine paper, because you can get more, given the size of the rings, you can get more than typically Filofax paper, which, albeit pretty good for pretty good for use with a fountain pen. Not so good from a point of view of how thick it is. And so I have been trying, and I've been toying with the ideas of a single entry per page, writing one-sided, all sorts of things. I might do a do a video at some point about journaling using a Filofax. But one of the things I do like about the concept of writing using a ring binder is, unlike a notebook where you have to, there's not necessarily perfect flatability with a notebook. I mean, some are good, some are pretty good, but you know, it's not perfect. If you want perfect flatability, you can literally take the page out that you're going to write your journal entry on, put it on a piece of leather, and you can write, and then you can insert it into the ring binder. But also, if you block your copybook for some reason, spill some ink, coffee stains, something like that, then you can replace that page. You can replace that page. And then possibly, and I will make a video about this, imagine a medieval scribe copying out a text that he's copying, he or she, but it's probably going to be he, isn't it? Because they're all monks in a monastery, copying out something that might be 200 or 300 years old, and it's starting to, the ink is starting to fade, the vellum is starting to deteriorate because maybe it hasn't been stored correctly, or it's suffered fire damage through the rampages of the Vikings when they, I mean, I'm really digressing here, aren't I? Turning up on the shores of Lindisfarne and pillaging the countryside and nicking all the good stuff, the gold and silver, and there's water and fire damage to this vellum. So they are basically rewriting the texts. It is a possibility with a ring binder that you can go through this, or someone, and this is a concept that I want to encourage my future dependents, and that is, you can feel free if there's a page that has been chewed by the dog, or for some reason is getting a bit worn or the rings are pulling through, rewrite it and reinsert it in the same place. I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to necessarily be my handwriting, but the words, the message that I'm conveying to my future readers, whether they be 50 years time or 1,000 years time, still holds true, as long as they're copying it word for word. And that's not always the case, as we know from history. But I blow hot and cold. I mean, I have got journals in exercise books and hardback books, and I have some that's in ring bound format, and I do have that option with a ring binder to change things. I think it's a very novel idea of pulls to, once you've finished, to seal it up by soldering shut the rings. I think that's a fabulous idea. I personally won't do it, but I can see the appeal of that. I think that is one of the most interesting and hard-hitting concepts. So, I mean, this will you listen to in a few days' time, and it might be online in 100 years' time or 200 years' time. So, who knows? I mean, there's a historical series of digressions here, but, we are looking at we can go onto YouTube and look at Queen Victoria travelling through London in her carriage. And she didn't know anything about YouTube. And I probably don't know anything about future video platforms 100 years time, 150 years time, but it may be the case. It's perfectly possible for people making YouTube videos now to be talking to people in the future. So if I'm speaking to you from the 21st century and you're in the 22nd or 23rd, maybe you will solder up those vintage ring binders, and if you find any that are soldered up, well, maybe there'll be some of Paul's. I don't know, but anyway, there we go. Emma Shell says, I've got many, and this is my review of the Filofax original in A5 that I did recently. You will recall that I've been meaning to review the original, in inverted commas, the original model for some time, but I didn't want to buy a new one. It's not really my cup of tea. So as a binder, so I had to wait for one that came up that was cheap enough for me to review. And the one that came up was an A5 version, in sort of flesh tone. It's not my cup of tea. Probably that's the reason why I got it really cheap for a few pounds. But anyway, so once I got it, I reviewed it, and the lady says, I've got many original Filofaxes and I'm trying to sell them all. Okay. Because of this leather, in inverted commas. Okay, so the lady's not a fan of this particular Filofax leather. It's been painted or covered with something transparent, like very fine and supple nail polish. With the years, this polish gets used and it looks like it's been destroyed, and no leather care product can restore the shiny appearance. Those original Filofaxes lose a lot of value because of that, and always look like they are dirty. I was a great fan of this model because of its simplicity, but I got very disappointed because of this material, which you seem to consider like a low quality leather. I can confirm this, sadly. My oldest one is from 2018 or 2019. Best regards, Marie Ellen. Thank you, Marie. this is like a patent leather. Not all of them are like this, but there's a lot of cracking. Anecdotally, there's a lot of there's a lot of evidence of cracking. It's just not me. So I share your. I mean, I'm come from a neutral thing because it's not my cup of tea anyway. But I just bought it to review. But do I have it here? No. Just look at the video. Thank you. I'm copying out there, aren't I? I'm being lazy. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the original, as you know, because although I like the simplicity, I think it's very, very good. And some people report reasonable flatability, which is good. That elastic, because it's actually attached to the binder, it's basically like Filofax making a decision that longevity is not something they need to worry about. They're not thinking, what will that, how saggy and dirty will that elastic be in 30, 40, 50 years time? But it will be saggy and dirty, and it will look naff, really. So it's basically not something that is really aims at longevity, in my opinion. And I am surprised that new ones, I am actually surprised that, just given the fact that it's fairly simplistic, it's a simple design with no zips, I mean, it's a very, very easy design to make. I mean, I couldn't do it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a fairly, the actual production processes involved are far fewer than something like a Malden. And yet, Filofax, the Filofax company, charge quite a lot of money for what is a fairly basic design. So, yeah, interesting. It's one of those Marmite binders. You either love it or hate it. I hate it because of the elastic, and also because it's about the same price as a similar version you could buy with, from either Me Plus, this is a Me Plus. Where did I leave my, oh, here we go, the plotter. This is a plotter, nice and simple. And to be honest, if you are worried about pen loops and elastic, I think this is a better idea. So you have a divider with a pen loop and elastic on here, so that if the elastic gets all saggy and horrible, just replace it with one of these divider cards as a securing strap, and then you have this binder that will, in 100 years time, this will still be here, and it will look even better than the Filofax original. And the original, because for some reason the leather is not great, is it? And the rings are okay, but they're very, very cheap and clickety clackety, aren't they? I can't see someone using one of those in 100 years time with, 100-year-old elastic. Dear oh dear, it's just it's not a good look, is it? So viewer says, and this is in response to my video, Filofax personal size and how I use it. So one I did quite some time ago. So Claire says, I'm going to use shoeboxes in future. I'm testing my pens for my journal using your water test too. A couple of excellent videos. Okay, so water test. Recently, as you know, I went into I was camping in the forests of Wales, and I took with me not a Filofax, but I took a I'll put a little video in here. So I took some A6 paper, and I tested with a number of pens, Pilot G2 and some fountain pens and different inks, and the ink in here, which is a Kaweco Lilliput with a genuine Kaweco cartridge. This was the worst ink, which completely disappeared off the page when it got really, really damp in the forest, because it was raining all night and it was humid, very, very hot, and it was just horrendous in terms of writing. But Pilot G2 stood up reasonably well. But what really, really helped was some Heart of Darkness ink, which bonds with the paper and is impervious to water damage. And Claire recommends that video, and so do I. And she's also using a let me show you this. No, I'm not a Marco Tozzi aficionado, but a shoebox is a shoebox, and in here I have got lots of stuff. So I've got lots of new stuff. What have we got here? An original Filofax jot pad, and I've got some original dividers and some maps, and then I've got some vintage dividers. So I find that, have I got anything that I can? No, that's all right. So I use shoeboxes to hold this sort of stuff. And I find it's a perfect fit. So I'm glad some people share my idea. Okay, MZ Moth, I'm not sure whether that's the right pronunciation. So the lady's commenting on my review of the Lyndhurst Personal, and as you probably aware, I really rate the Lyndhurst. Portland, Kensington and Lyndhurst, they're my top three from the modern era, from the 21st century. And the lady says, I've just picked this one up off Vinted for £16 in very nice condition. So it's a personal Lyndhurst. It's good to know you rate it. One little disappointment is that the inside near the rings did have that cracking issue, so I've scraped it all down to the fabric. I just ordered some flexible leather glue and thought maybe I could either just coat the fabric or even glue some new leather over the top. Have you tried anything along those lines? I wouldn't like to muck it up if it's better left, but I'm tempted to give it a go. Give it a go and let me know whether you succeed. Personally, I haven't. I've got a couple of Lyndhursts where in A4, and they haven't peeled, but I know that some have. And when you look at the photographs of some people's Lyndhurst binders that they're selling, you can see the peeling there. So it's not a leather it's not really leather, is it? It's just like a leather look, sort of thin something or other that's stuck to the man-made substrate. I actually like the substrate. I think, to be honest, and as you know, my feelings about the Guildford Mini Extra Slim, which I believe is the greatest Filofax in terms of the form factor ever made, which is let down by the appalling leather lining, which just flakes and flakes and flakes and crumbles, and it's just pointless. And secondly, the rings, not that great. They're very delicate. But I personally haven't tried it. The idea of stabilizing the coating by stabilizing the crumbliness by coating, it might work. I haven't tried it. I personally, my advice is just scrape it off, and it just takes ages and ages and ages. And you have to take your time doing it, because if you do a little bit here and there, you could potentially have crumbling for the whole life of the binder. So if you start peeling it off, you've got to make a good go of it. Otherwise, there's bits all over your paperwork forever and ever and ever, which is not a good look. Very frustrating. If Filofax themselves are watching this or listening to this, my recommendation is don't waste your time sort of sticking some sort of leather look layer on top of the man-made subject. Just the material that you're sticking that leather look lining to looks pretty good as it is. So why go to all that trouble when you know that, which I'm sure you do know because you've done product testing. Yeah, you've done product testing. Yes. If you've done product testing, you will obviously know that it peels within a very short time after manufacture. It's starting to peel, which you'll know about. You'll know all about that, won't you? So just why bother? Because you can obviously just make a few that have no lining. You probably find that they're in peak demand. If you ever bring back, for instance, the Filofax Guildford Mini Extra Slim, which I think is the best one you've ever made, don't bother with the lining, because you're just storing up trouble for the end user. Just leave it unlined and everything will be cool. Anyway, I've said my piece. Mel Zandok, I don't know whether I pronounced it right. If I haven't, I apologise. Says, I've been an avid fountain pen, and this is following my review of the Tom Studio Wren. Tom Studio, independent small pen manufacturer here in the UK. I've got 5 of their pens, so I'm a little bit biased. I bought them all out of my own money, but I'm a fan. But this is what Mel Zandok says, or Mel Sandok. I've been an avid fountain pen enthusiast again for a few years now, and I also have a small collection of fountain pens, including a travel fountain pen. This is a fun new writing instrument. So talking about the Tom Studio Wren, but at over €40, it's way too expensive. My small travel fountain pen is made of solid brass, about 8 centimetres long, 15 centimetres wide when extended, so it's about the size of a regular fountain pen. It has a size 5 nib. Mine is a B width and writes excellently. The ink comes from standard cartridges that are widely available worldwide. The price on AliExpress, including shipping, is between €4 and €6. The brass body makes a pen indestructible and light. and it simply won't dry out even after 6 months of disuse. So I'm not going to experiment with expensive new things anymore, and will stick with my brass travel fountain pen. So I've got it in my hand. I'm finding it difficult here, but here's an example in terms of cost. Okay, this is the Wren that the gentleman's talking about. This year it was voted the station here in the UK, the Stationery Product of the Year, a very, very prestigious award. Anyway, I think I paid £37 for mine. You can get them for as little as £33. So €40, that's about right. In fact, I've got 2 of these, and I've also got the fountain pen version, which is a little bit more. I think I paid about £60 for this. It writes nice. It's a very, very nice one. But compared to, just from a size point of view, this is a Kaweco Sport that most people know. So this is smaller than a Kaweco Sport. Very, very nice. And this is my favourite EDC. And I've loaded this up with this magical ink, this Heart of Darkness ink. Can't remember how much I paid for this, but to be honest, this will last me a lifetime, I'm sure. So it just works with a kind of nylon replaceable nib through capillary attraction, and it works. It works very, very well. But the gentleman's comparing a brass pen, solid brass pen from AliExpress. As we know, pens made in the Far East, there's lower labour rates, so things are much cheaper. We know that. This is a Kaweco Lilliput. To be honest, I don't know where this is made, but it's a German design, and it's marketed in the UK. I think buying a brand new one of these new is well over £60, which will be about €70. So if you're comparing, if this was available on AliExpress rather than an independent pen manufacturer in the UK, it would be less than €30 or €40. It'd be a lot less, wouldn't it? It'd be a lot less. But it isn't. If you want one of these, you've got to buy it from Tom Studio, or go to somewhere, a prestigious retailer like John Lewis. I've seen these being sold in John Lewis, which is a kind of a fairly posh store. Not as posh as Harrods, but it is posh in the UK. It's where MPs buy their furniture from, on the what they call the John Lewis list. Anything more than that, and they get trouble with their expenses, but they're allowed to buy something from the John Lewis list. So presumably an MP could buy one of these and claim it on expenses, because they're very keen, aren't they, all of them, on it claiming as much as they can from expenses, as we know, historically. They're keen to do that. But would I pay 37? Well, I have paid £37 for this, and I bought 2 of them. A black one for black ink and a blue one for blue ink. I liked it so much that I bought the fountain pen version, and also I've got a full-size Tom Studio fountain pen. I've also got a Lumos, which is a brass pen that cost me £65 last year. How does that compare with some other kind of budget pens? So this is the Twisby Eco, which I highly rate, and I think they're about £20 to £25 in the UK. A Parker IM, that's £22 in the UK. The Lamy ST, which I highly rate, but it's no longer made. This would be the equivalent of £70 here in the UK. But this Papermate pen, this fountain pen, complete with, have I got the cartridge in here? Yes, but I've used it all up. The complete pen with a nib that I really rate, this costs £1.50. So what would you do? I mean, which is better? Which is better? And I'm labouring the point, and I'm not trying to criticise the commenter, but it's a very, very hard thing. Why would someone buy a Rolex watch, when you could get a Timex watch in Argos for $5.99? They do exactly the same job. This is £1.50, and this is potentially £70. They do the same job. Personal taste. I love this design. This is the pen that we're talking about here. This is the Tom Studio Wren, which I like. It's certainly more expensive than this, but from a point of view, a lifetime use. I mean, the gentleman says he's using cartridges, which is an ongoing cost. I don't know how much his cartridges are, but I would say using bottled ink to refill one of these ultimately is going to be, there must be a crossover point where the cost of the pen and this ink together, that is all you need. That would be, I mean, let's say this would last 20 years of writing. It depends. I mean, it could last 5 years, could last 100 years, but this is all you need. So this is a total about £50, isn't it? £50 investment. And that's all you need, potentially forever. Or you could get well, I know this didn't come from AliExpress, but the gentleman said he got a nice brass pen that he really likes, that I think it cost him €7 or €8 on AliExpress. Okay, that's absolutely fine. And then he's got his cartridges, which presumably cost a certain amount. And there will come a time using cartridges where your overall cost for running an AliExpress pen with cartridges will overtake the cost of one of these, which works on ink being stored in a cotton wadding cartridge, which just soaks up ink through capillary attraction. It's a very clever system, and ultimately I really like it. Out of all my EDC pens, it is the one that I like the most, other than my brass Lumos, Tom Studio Lumos, which I've also got a review about. But I like it. I like it. I mean, this is. I mean, I use the analogy. I'm looking at. You can't see it, but I'm looking at a chain ring, the front cog, the front ring for a bicycle, and I'm looking at it, and it's made by Campagnolo, who make arguably the finest bicycle parts. They're very, very expensive. And the cost of that chain ring, is more than some bikes. And it's the sort of thing that you would see on a bicycle that costs £15,000, so about €17,000. I mean, it's just ridiculous, I know, but would I gain more pleasure out of using the finest bicycle components than I would the satisfaction of buying a cheap bicycle, a cheap bargain bicycle, for a few hundred yards, a few £100. It's a difficult thing. It's a very, 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 very difficult thing. It's like cameras or pots and pans. I've got a Brabantia saucepan that costs nearly £100, but I could buy a saucepan for £1, you know. So it is a very personal thing. I think in the grand scheme of things, I must disagree with the commenter in as much as €40 for a pen that would arguably last an entire lifetime, because it's very well made and the system is very, very novel. And you are paying for the development costs of this. I'm sure Tom, that's his surname, didn't suddenly wake up and say, push a button and these came out on his 3D printer. There must have been some multiple iterations of this product, which, you know, those development costs have to be paid for in some way. And this is not something that, where it's a mass scale. It's tricky, isn't it? It is very, very tricky. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy, but I do understand that not everybody wants to pay or can afford to pay €40 for a pen. But they can, if they can buy a very, very decent pen for £1.50 that works very, very well. So horses for courses, and I'm sure that Mel's €7, €8 solid brass pen is a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing. Anyway, I'll rest my case. So I hope you enjoyed that. I've tried to make it as close to an hour as I can. Sometimes it may not be an hour. It depends whether I'm up to it. Okay, so be prepared for maybe some shorter podcasts in the future. I don't know. It all depends on A, how I feel, and B, how many questions you put to me. But we'll see. But as you've seen, I have addressed quite a few questions and comments, and I've stitched them together using the wonders of video editing, because at the moment I just can't talk for an hour non-stop, which you'll be pleased to hear. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye. And just before I go, if you're interested, if you like this format, if you like these podcasts, then you'll love the podcasts I have exclusively for channel members, which I don't call podcasts, I call them coffee breaks. It's a similar format where I am chatting or discussing or answering comments from exclusively from channel members. So that's a whole new level of intrigue and interest, no doubt. But if you're interested, it will cost you £1 each month to find out. No commitment, no ongoing commitment. Pay £1 and have a look. And obviously, there's a growing library of exclusive material for you to binge watch if that's your bag. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.